Okay.
I'm still sitting down, trying to finalize the drawing, but I look up and I see Ren walking toward the door, and I said, "Psst, hey, be careful." And I keep drawing.
Okay.
Take your own advice.
All right. You keep drawing, and as you walk over to the black door, you reach for the handle, and as you turn it, it's locked. The handle won't turn at all. You're not sure how sophisticated the lock seems to be because it can't be as simple as it appears at a glance. It's simply just a keyhole, old fashioned, very, very simple key keyhole. The kind you'd find in like a house from like the, 40s or 50s. Um, so as you jiggle it and don't get any purchase and it doesn't give to either side. You have to decide how you want to proceed. What would you like to do?
Um, and it's not technology based. It's just an old school simple lock, right?
That's what it looks like, but it appears to hold fast, and I mean it seems at least solid. So
Okay. Well, um, can I try to cast telekinesis to see if I can feel my way in the lock and see if I can turn the tumbler to pop it open or the
sure. So you go ahead and kind of reach out with your telekinesis, and you're able to discern that there is kind of like an internal latch that seems like if you applied some pressure, it should be a very simple matter of kind of bypassing the lock altogether. And I mean, you're very familiar with engineering and fabrication and everything, so you realize just bypassing the lock altogether and basically just working on the latch for the door itself, you'd be able to do it almost effortlessly if you chose to.
okay. So yeah, I cast telekinesis then and try
Okay.
to open the door.
You're able to just instantly you can go ahead and cast that. You're able to instantly just flip the latch for the door, and it slowly starts swinging open on silent hinges. And as it does so, everybody in the room is able to see behind the door these individuals laying on a red satin and silk covered bed. They seem to be post coitus, and one of them appears to be supernatural in origin. The young lady laying out on the bed, apparently unconscious, she seems to be barely breathing. And you're able to see small droplets of blood spattered not only on the bedding itself, but up on the ceiling of the bed and the room. Um, the other furnishings in the room are fairly unexceptional. Everything seems appropriate, other than the fact that whoever this individual is, you would guess that the nature of what she's doing here is somehow permitted. And that, in and of itself, is surprising to you. You guys kind of can't believe there's whatever the fuck is happening here. You can't believe it's happening in this like house of worship with all these powerful beings and all of this stuff going on. And then it dawns on all of you. You all realize, wait a second, out of everybody that's actually kind of on staff here, the only other female that you've seen is what the child would maybe represent. The androgyny of the child, the female side of that, is really the only other non-male that seems to be present here, and other than the visitors, obviously. And then to see that in all of these men, in this population almost solely of just men, to see that there is some kind of, you don't know if it what it is, but you can't quite tell, is this a business? I mean, this door is situated prominently in an area that appears to be dedicated to leisure, right? To comfort, to relaxation. This door is one of only four in this whole area, and it seems to be occupied by somebody who is not only in the middle of a sex act, but there seems something supernatural, dangerous, and frankly, possibly evil. And none of that mixes with the environment. Now, as all of you look upon this again, because how could one not, you guys see that the female that appears to be in charge, with the elaborate headdress and a thin, smoky trail of blue and indigo energy swirling around her head and hair, um, as she sits up, she looks squarely over at your group and gets a long, languine, devilish smile stretching across her face at almost inhuman, disproportionate lengths. And as the smile takes on just a queer quirk of crookedness in the corner, you guys notice that her eyes seem to narrow and for just a moment transform into those of a cat with bright silver in their centers. As this kind of effect fades, she looks at you in a almost predatory fashion, with that same smile uh, stretching on for a long moment. She very slowly gets up, completely shamelessly, and slowly stalks over to the open door where you stand, Ren. She gets to within a few feet of you and seems to continue walking forward at a slow pace. What would you like to do?
Sorry, wrong room. I'll basically say that and just
Okay.
kind of
All right.
play the oops bashful. I shouldn't have picked this lock card.
All right. And
Just try to be very innocent.
okay, at this, she looks at you uh, with those narrowed eyes again, like a predator looking at prey. And she very softly whispers as she closes the door, um, uh, uh, without any noise whatsoever, almost in slow motion. She whispers softly,
I will see you all again very soon.
okay. And with that, the door closes, and as you turn back
She said,
into the
"I'll see
room,
all of you again very soon." I'm sorry, the
yes,
voice changer
correct.
was okay. Just making sure.
And as you turn back towards the rest of the room, you notice that Harmony and Pilgrim pretty much missed this. They're already into the kind of alcove of the stairwell leading down. Um, all right. As the group is moving, Akama, you looked up as the door opened and were privy to this. You, I assume, start folding up your drawing your art pad as you.
Did I finish it?
No, you got about halfway through with the time that you have, with the time that you had. Um, so you would guess with another probably 2 minutes, you'd be able to finish. You got about, you got about from the top of the head to like mid chest done. Um, okay, and did you want to go ahead and start following along as they head down the stairs?
Yeah, so I pack up my stuff
Okay.
and I get up and start walking toward the doorway. I look back toward the rest of my crew and I say, "Let's go. They're leaving us right at this moment."
I saw boobs. I won't say
And I
that.
look at him
I
and I
did not.
give him
I
a
did not.
thumbs
I did
up
not say
and
that.
I
I did
go,
not say that.
"Yeah."
All right. I'll just kind of after doing that internally, I'm kicking myself because I was already kind of like too much is happening, and then I'm the one that just caused that last thing, and being like, what the fuck is wrong with me? So I just kind of quietly, almost like a ashamed, like small child, like a small boy, just being like, I'm just gonna like, put my head down and kind of kick my feet out as I walk, being like, I'm just gonna fucking shut up and not do anything.
Okay. As you start walking, the way everybody is situated, Ymir, you wind up closest to that open door that had the glow and the steam coming out. And once again, from your position, you're able to hear a pretty loud kind of bellow coming from that individual again. And this time you hear a really loud splash, and then a whole bunch of what sounds like um, uh, not non-warriors, like civilians. You hear a whole bunch of voices kind of laughing and just kind of having a good time, and people kind of whispering and at the big splash, kind of like, a little bit of a cheer, and some people being startled, and some exclamations and things like that. So you're able to hear that fairly clearly from inside of that door. And the rest of you, as you're closer to the stairs leading down, you're just able to hear some kind of splash coming from that room, and some, maybe a few little cheers and stuff. Does anybody want to do anything before you head down the stairs? Just making sure.
I'm on the way
Or
down.
yeah,
What's that?
I was
I
letting next go. Yeah.
I'm on the way down.
Okay, you're heading down. Ymir?
Yeah,
Ymir
Okay, Ren?
takes
I'm doing the same as Dex. I follow the
Okay.
combo.
Ymir takes 2 steps back from where he was originally, kind of halfway in between the doorway and where Akama was, and just sort of peers around the doorway to see what he can see, what maybe the commotion is. Not a full on like devote all his attention to it, but just to see if he can discern what these cheers are before he starts making his way towards the rest of the party.
Okay, as you peek in, just as you're moving past, you're able to see this, a large, what looks to be some kind of heated pool, a sauna, some kind of spa. Um, and in the waters, you notice several different individuals. You would guess that most of them are probably pilgrims and travelers, and tourists, because they don't really look like they fit in here. This place does look very different from most of the areas that are common on Rift's Earth in civilization. Not a lot of attention is usually paid to just sheer comfort, except for by the extremely wealthy. And this appears to be some kind of little bastion that's been set up for more common people to kind of be able to experience that, at least after maybe taking a long trip or pilgrimage. There's still something like that waiting for travelers.
Are you in a
Um,
swingers a fucking temple?
so as you see this and continue moving forward, you do see that this individual, not in any of the armor or anything like that now, he's actually in the pool and appears to be bathing, and he's got a couple of what appear to be, the travelers, the visitors, with large, like, loofah brushes, and bars of soap, and they appear to be scrubbing his head and shoulders. And people seem to just be having a good time, and kind of just making merry and relaxing. He does not see you at all, but he just keeps making noises and kind of enjoying himself just as much as they are. Um, you guys head down the stairs, and as you reach the next floor, there are two large brass doors, approximately 15 feet tall, at the bottom of the stair landing. As you guys approach, Harmony and Pilgrim are several feet ahead of you, and they seem to stride forward with utmost confidence. As they reach um, the doors themselves start pivoting inward of their own volition. As they swing wide, noiselessly, um, they start picking up the glint of many, many torches lighting a large, cavernous, and dark space. As you guys all start moving forward, um, the figure in the foreground is not present, but the room looks the same. There is some what could only be considered supplies, rations, sundries, and munitions piled up in strategic points that still have yet to be perhaps dispersed or gone through. Um, then lining many of the walls, what appears to be statues and some kind of representation and busts of what could be deities or important or prominent figures. As you look up to the upper level, to the second floor, you see that the balcony that runs the length of the entire upper level, it too seems to have something along the walls that appears to be some kind of busts or statues, something that's supposed to represent obviously some kind of important individuals. All along this entire room, the utmost expense has been paid to truly make every single corner a work of art. And yet, the juxtaposition of having combat supplies, food, and so forth stocked up in almost haphazard fashion belies that this once serene and extravagant, opulent temple-like structure is now needed for much more militaristic and mundane uses as well. And though it still paid quite a bit of reverence, the encroaching danger from the surrounding world is now felt even here in this hollowed tomb-like structure. As you guys look around, you see that the central statue, it seems to continuously morph and alter itself every few seconds. Its pose, its facial composition, even its species seems to change dramatically every 5 to 10 seconds. As it does so, it takes on incredibly lifelike qualities, including its pose and facial expressions. And often these expressions are something very dynamic and showing quite a bit of action and almost appear more skilled than any sculptor could they themselves make. So you're wondering if maybe this is some kind of piece of technology at play, because none of you have ever seen an enchantment that could really do this. You're not familiar with any of the warriors that you're seeing flash by in this manner, but it is very impressive nonetheless. In the glow from the torches, you also see that there's electric candles and lights mixed in. They're very elaborately crafted, and they're even the light sources that are made from electricity are still fashioned to look like flames. Okay. As you're looking around this room, you see several individuals and then something in a small alcove to the side, which catches your eye as well. Um, Pilgrim and Harmony begin walking into the center of the room where 5 individuals seem to be assembled. Okay. Standing taller than the rest, massive, in fact, at about 15 feet tall, and wielding a devastating looking, solid, almost block of metal as a weapon. You see this figure almost completely facing your approaching group. You see that, again, like the bishop from earlier, you can't really tell whether this being is a humanoid in some kind of armor or whether it's some kind of golem-like creature that's a solid piece of metal. The strength it would take to effectively wield that weapon in battle is monstrous, and would assure that if it was able to get its hands on a living creature, it would almost assuredly be able to rend it limb from limb easily. Even mega damage creatures would probably be picked apart in just a few moments by this beast. Standing to his side, you see a strange and alien looking being with a large tome in its hands. You see that this creature appears to be about 7 feet tall. You cannot see any kind of biological material, only shadow where skin should be. And replacing any kind of face or head, there is just a constant smoky blue glowing trail that seems to lead out from its head and the opening in its cowl. The metal on its back appears to be lashed to it with chains, but you also see that there appear to be spikes that enter where the creature's body would be, in a most gruesome and painful fashion. The sigils on its adornments glow brightly with some kind of magic, and you see that as it pivots, it doesn't seem to step at all, as though it's floating above the ground and not walking upon it. It doesn't really seem to notice your group as you approach, though, and goes on about what appears to be its studies. Next, you see Pilgrim and Harmony's master, the Grand Master, as they refer to him. He is standing there stoically with his arms folded behind his back. He is looking directly at that alcove where you had all noticed something strange in the corner. Next to him, you see this individual who appears to be serving a drink to the Grandmaster, who appears to be ignoring him. This individual turns as you approach, and the strange corpse-like visage that he displays slowly curls up at the corners as best as it can. This gruesome image is very unsettling, as the effort that it takes makes you realize that its flesh is long dead and is only being kept from further decay by potent magics. The drink that it appears to be trying to offer to the Grand Master is a purplish substance that appears to slosh slowly like honey that's been warmed over the fire, but has a thick and onerous consistency. It has a kind of purple vapor that appears to be hovering above it, and you see small sparkles of the same color of energy cascading around and above the edge of the glass, almost like visible champagne bubbles. Now, as he pivots, Something that you notice is he moves so fluidly that the fluid inside of the glass, it's not disturbed at all. And as he sees you approach, and he holds his candelabra in front of him, with the strange vapors coming from it, his smile is even more off-putting as you see that everything about him has that kind of purplish glow. His eyes, the candles, the drink, even his adornments. And he cuts a very strange and peculiar image in the rest of this environment. He also seems to have a slyness about him, and a kind of subservient air that many of you have encountered in the past, that lends itself to treachery. Um, there's definitely something about this being that is off putting to each of you in turn. Um,
I have a quick question.
yes,
So I've noticed that several descriptions, and I know some of it's just the artwork that you've used, but purple has been mentioned. And am I overthinking this, or does Ren recognize that maybe like certain types of magic give off different types of auras, different colors, maybe?
you
Or is that just
absolutely
me
are
over?
sure of that. You're absolutely
Okay.
sure of that.
Okay. So am
And you're
I
definitely picking up
understanding
on
that maybe
patterns.
necromantic or death kind of related magic typically has this purple aura?
Absolutely. You
Okay.
you definitely make that connection. Um, okay, and finally you guys turn to see this figure standing to the rear of the group. He's actually currently facing away from you, and only after a moment does he turn to face you so you can get a look at him. He appears to have some large kind of wheel in his hands. And as he turns around, this is the individual that you see. This wheel is unique. There is something about it, a quality about it, that instantly makes all of you recognize an incredibly potent enchantment that seems to permeate not only the wheel, but the individual by proxy of the wheel. And I need each of you to go ahead and roll a perception check, if you would.
Ay,
Um,
ay, El Capitan.
you notice that whatever the kind of jewel or crystal is that seems to be sticking out of this creature's torso, it does indeed glow with that same purplish energy. You notice that there is a
Nice.
cross carved on its a cross carved on its forehead, and you also notice that its mouth, its lips seem to have been chewed off long ago, and yet the creature seems relatively unaffected. You wonder what other kinds of torturous acts have been performed, as small bits of tissue on the hands and chest are obviously missing as well. Beneath the robes, who can say what this individual looks like? He is carrying that kind of crude beheading blade, that almost kind of flat machete. And there are indeed the skulls tethered to his side. There are many of these in number, and the utility of this is lost on you, so you assume that there must be some kind of significant connection with this creature's purpose, the skulls, the wheel, and the gem. Um, all right. Okay, so all of you are able, through your understanding of magic and the arcane, you're all able to right away recognize that this creature is somehow possessed or under the thrall of the magical artifact, which is the wheel. The wheel itself, you're also able to notice, Ren, you're able to notice that the wheel itself is actually part of some kind of mechanism. And this is very, very strange when it comes to magical items, because often things are not designed to work together. Usually it's a feat in and of itself just to get something to work on its own. but only the highest kind of enchantments are able to sustain that kind of level of spellcraft. So it's very rare to see like two minor enchantment rings that will work together to do something. It's just too big of a lift for the caster to initially create. So when it is done, things like artifacts that work together usually denote very, very powerful arcane energies and aptitudes. Okay, so you guys are able to pick those details up, and as you approach closer, um, the Grandmaster turns around and faces you, and to your entire group, he just gives a very solemn, slight bow of the head. He looks at Pilgrim and Harmony as they approach, and as they do so, they walk very close to him, and they both just simply bow their heads. He in turn bows his head, and they all just stand there within about 3 feet of each other silently. Um, the This individual has already turned and is starting to slowly move over to where the small alcove was that has the item of interest. And the individual holding the drink has turned and is apparently walking towards a set of stairs that lead up to the second level. Um, okay, the large warrior looking individual with the massive sword, he's just standing stoically, almost on guard for the room. And in fact, he seems completely motionless. Um, and the individual with the wheel is simply looking at your group as it approaches, not moving, not speaking, just observing. Um, okay, at this, what would you guys like to do? I do want to tell you that in the alcove, you see where the individual is walking over that's holding the giant tome. That alcove, the thing that caught all of your eye was this strange object. Okay. This object in a small, probably 10 foot wide by about 15 foot tall little alcove at the side of the room. This object has a strange iridescent light that seems to be radiating outward from it. Um, it obviously is something of great importance because it's given its own small section of the room in reverence. And you see that the tile work in front of it, as well as lots of kind of filigree and decorations along the alcove, the exterior itself, are denoting just an extreme amount of reverence for whatever this thing is. You guys also notice that the alcove is partitioned off by a line on the floor that's made of hundreds of very intricate and elaborate sigils and what look to be maybe runes or just eldritch markings. This kind of semicircle that extends around this seemingly artifact, um, it has a break in the floor in a perfect line, a perfect half circle. And as you guys inspect the area a little bit more, it looks like the whole area is able to pivot and spin and basically seal itself off from the main room and perhaps even have something on the other side that you can't see, almost like a revolving door in a fashion. So as you guys are gazing upon this, you all also notice that at the very center of the object, um, there is what looks like a perfect hole that is carved into it in the same shape as the hole that's on the back of the wheel that the individual is carrying. Now, it doesn't look like they themselves could connect together, but it does look like the spacing of the holes is the same. Um, all right. So with that, I want to open it up to you guys. What would you like to do?
You all go. I'll be right back. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries,
I'm
man.
I'm just as we walk into the room, I am looking around in a surprised manner of how everything had came together. I'm kind of enjoying the not necessarily atmosphere, but more of the lines of the structures of how everything was created. Then I look toward the uh, question. Is Harmony and Pilgrim in front of the Mad Monk?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I don't know anybody but them two. So I am slowly walking, but not in a fashion where I am trying to catch up, more of the lines of uh kind of like half stepping, just looking around and trying to take in the area that we just got to.
Okay. All right. As you're observing the environment a little more closely, one thing that you're able to notice is that um, very, very quickly in the corner of your eye, one image in the main statue does stand out and seem familiar. And you very startedly realize that it's actually one of your ancestors um, from your Atlantean clan, Draco Amicus. And you know that this particular ancestor of yours was rumored to have been lost shortly after embarking early in his career as a dimensional adventurer. Not much is known of him, but uh, his clan always spoke highly of him and remembered him well. But unfortunately, with Atlanteans, one thing that's known about the great explorers of the Megaverse is they get lost, and sometimes they never return. Sometimes they were just unable to return for a while, and sometimes it's even things like a dimensional anomaly where time is warped, and for them, mere weeks went by, but it's been centuries. So it's never really assumed that missing Atlanteans are necessarily dead. But for the most part, this ancestor of yours, he was written off several hundred years ago as basically lost to the megaverse. Um, you'd have to do a little more looking into it to really, remember, some details and actually maybe look up some facts about him, because it wasn't necessarily something that you're, a intense area of study for you because he was so kind of obscure. But the fact that you've seen him here and you're pretty damn sure it was him, um, it's intriguing to you. Definitely something interesting. Um,
I definitely
okay.
walk up to the statue and just stand there and just stare at the statue and try to look around the base of it to see if there's any inscriptions or any type of writing on it.
Um, you see that there's a name that's written out. It's Karn, Kahrn, and you see that uh, below. I'm sorry. You see that that name is listed out with about 30 other names of all different varieties. As you quickly scan them over, that's the name that you definitely remember your ancestor having, and so you put the two together out of the rest. You kind of are just discarding. So you do make that association that his name was Karn, but beyond that, you don't really remember much about him. Again, though, obviously from the effort of this, he was somebody of great importance, um, at least to the people who built this place. Um, okay. You also, as you're standing there, as it cycles through after a moment, you're able to get a more clear look at his image, and you're able to see that he seemed to be wearing the trappings of an Atlantean monster slayer, which they have a pretty specific kind of kit and a pretty specific kind of look that you're familiar with. So, anyway, knowing that he's a monster slayer may be able to get you a little further in some research later on. Okay. And let's see.
Is there anything in this room that stand out to me as anything that would like pique my interest? As
Okay. I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
is there anything in this room that stands out and like piques Ren's interest at all? Like, does he find anything like that particularly like just is like,
Uh,
oh, this is something I'm interested in, or this feel? I mean,
as you look up, you do notice that this place
besides
is
the Mad Monk, obviously, because that's the
absolutely.
first person that I've actually heard that can help me. So like, he has this kind of almost like boyish type, like ooh, like meeting like your first celebrity almost.
I get you.
Even though he knows very little about him, he's just like, this is a person that like knows what I do and apparently is very good at what I do. So there's like kind of intrigue that he has. But other than that, yeah.
I get you. Um, okay, so as you begin looking around the room briefly, you do notice that the entire ceiling structure, it looks like it was kind of supposed to be just, like an observatory kind of framing where, lots of glass, open light, have, kind of skylight feel. But as you look a little closer, you realize that what you're actually looking at are hollow emitters, and that there is a very sophisticated pattern of holographics being projected into this room right now by those emitters in the ceiling. This is very cleverly designed, very cleverly designed. But your acumen with technology and machinery is superior to the level that it takes to produce something like this. So as you see that, it makes you realize um, there is definitely a lot at play here that you're not privy to. Okay. Now
as well.
as you look over at the Mad Monk, Ren, you also notice that um, there are several small lights that seem to be signaling mental activity that are appearing throughout his cybernetics kind of superstructure. On his head, there are several sections that are lighting up in patterns, and you instantly recognize this as some kind of cybernetics being activated. But the way they are all leaning towards each other, you would guess that that was some kind of maybe psionic connection, some kind of mode of communication predicated on psionics.
Okay.
Those lights are indicating to you that either it is something based on technology, or that somehow this being's psionics are also merged in with his enhancements, his bionics and cybernetics, and this intrigues you even more. Um, you knew that there was magic at play But this is like the triumvirate. I mean, this is almost like the Holy Grail, and he's doing it all effortlessly. Um, Beyond this, he's not only a specialist in all of this, seemingly able to master all of these fields at once, but he's also predicated upon a physical frame that's incredibly imposing. You can tell that this individual would be able to slug it the fuck out with some really heavy hitters. Um, Not only is his discipline obvious at a glance, and his training, but physically you're recognizing that in the structure of his form, he's got more advanced tech than almost any cyborg that you've seen on the continent so far. Um, you are extremely impressed with not only how compact and powerful everything seems on his frame, but also that the materials that seem to be making up some of his superstructure, they are indeed some kind of malleable form of matter. You're seeing small sections of his outer epidermis that actually, every few seconds, they seem to alter and shift slightly. Now, you can't tell if this is something at play with the holographics or if this is his form actually making subtle adaptations and modifications to its structure just on a whim, almost subconsciously. But whatever it is, it definitely piques your interest because this is exactly the kind of thing that you've been looking for. Um,
Okay, so I went from a little boy seeing the celebrity for the first time to a girl at a Beatles concert. Like I'm just like like, but like not out loud. But I'm just like, holy shit! This I need to spend hours or days with this man and pick him apart. Like I'm fascinated by everything I'm seeing on this person right now.
More
okay.
like an Elvis concert.
You know, Beatles, Elvis, Michael Jackson, they all had those screamers. You know what I mean?
Screamers.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Oh man. All right. So,
Yeah, this
um,
guy is like, holy shit! Like I feel like just like a drop of his knowledge could advance my knowledge, you know,
Substantially.
1,000%.
Oh
you're
yeah.
you're sure that that is the case. Absolutely. Um, all right. So, Ymir, what would you like to be doing?
Ymir, seeing everyone, the whole menagerie lined up, he's clocking the people that he doesn't know. So his eyes are shifting between the golem warrior and the undead butler with the magic wine glass and all of those different characters until he locks dead eye or eyes lock dead with the Grand Master. And even though he doesn't, they've only met in passing. Maybe I can't quite remember if they even met in passing. Maybe slightly while they were traveling, but Ymir wants to show the Grandmaster the proper respect because he fought and died alongside one of his warriors back at the reactor core when he had the whole adventure
Okay.
with the portal. So Ymir locks eyes with the Grandmaster and delivers a deep, respectful, honored bow back from his slight one that he granted earlier. And he says, "Hail, Grandmaster Monk. I trust that your journey was. I trust your journey was uneventful, unlike ours." And he sort of, it's sort of a grim joke. And he looks at the master and goes, "Your warriors are strong. The one I fought beside, I would be honored to share a cup with him if him or his family ever came around Jotunheimer, the capital city of my homeland."
Okay. So we're gonna say so they were kind of huddled up in some kind of like kind of little meditative conference between the three of them. But we'll say that they wrap up really quickly. I want to throw in at one point as they're all leaning towards each other. Um, you guys hear Harmony taking a deep breath, almost like she's stifling, like beginning to like cry, almost hysterically. And you can tell that whatever's being communicated is just heart wrenching for her. This passes after just a moment, and the three all lift their heads back up. Pilgrim walks over and puts an arm over Harmony's shoulder and seems to comfort her. The Grandmaster steps around the two of them and walks briskly directly over to you, Ymir. And as he does so, he reaches out his hand in a warrior salute and grasps yours and bows his head deeply to you in like a warrior salute. As he does that, we'll say that you go ahead and express what you had wanted to. He nods after you say this, and now that we're caught up, he says to you in response, he says, right there. Okay, he says just a few brief words, but they echo powerfully throughout the hall in his deep, kind of synthetic voice. He says to you, "You have my thanks for trying to save my warrior. I will not forget this." Okay, at this, he turns to look you directly in the eye. And as he does so, you can see that he is quite earnest in his assertion. You are definitely known to him for what your role was in what took place at the power station and beyond. Um, and you recognize this in the look that he gives you. Now, as he does this, he turns very quickly and steps over to you, Ren. And as he does so, he reaches out his hand, basically to take your hand. It's a gentle motion, it's not an aggressive motion. But as he reaches out, he just waits to see if you will accept and take his hand.
Yes, I will. I pee a little.
All right. All right, you reach out, and as he takes your hand, you see his right eye array start glowing wildly. All different kinds of colors are reflected through the several different lenses that light up. And as he does this, you can tell that he's looking over the structure of your arm. And as he finishes after 2 or 3 seconds, he kind of nods his head once briskly, showing kind of like "I thought so," that kind of motion, that kind of knowing motion. As he does so, he kind of spins your hand over so that now the back of his hand is now facing upwards, and you guys are both looking at the top of his hand. And as he does this, you see that there's a kind of rippling of the surface of the material of his arm. And it starts high up by the shoulder, but there's a kind of energy signature that starts kind of emanating from this rippling portion. It's only about 6 inches wide, but you can see the actual surface of the metal rippling like iron shavings under the influence of a magnetic field. And as these small waves start traveling downward, accompanied by this energy profile, you see that the shimmering actually slowly transfers from his hand onto your arm. And as it slowly moves up, you see that it gets about to the elbow and it makes this thin kind of band of silver that becomes more and more bright and reflective as the seconds tick by. Very quickly, the energy signal seems to dissipate, and this thin band of silverish material just remains basically right at the elbow of your synthetic arm. Um, he looks at you very seriously, and he says,
Keep that quite safe. The next step in your journey is to find a nanoforge. I will speak with you again once you do.
and with this, he stands fully once again. He looks over at you, Akama, and he nods deeply. Um, and he says,
When next we meet, prepare yourself for a martial challenge. We should see if perhaps I have something.
and at this, he turns, not hesitating or waiting, with ultimate uh, purpose and intent in his motions, and very quickly strides up the stairs and out of the room.
Can you repeat that last
Yeah, can you repeat
bit?
both of those? Actually, his voice is hard to understand.
He was saying that when next he meets you, um, he may have some martial information to share, meaning he may be able to teach you something about fighting, about martial arts.
That was
Um,
to Akama, correct?
That was me.
correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because I
that
didn't martial.
and that he wants you to kind of prepare yourself. Okay.
What
Um,
was he saying to me?
to you he said, um, be careful with that. Basically, protect that band of silver. He said, um, the next step in your journey is to find a nano forge,
Nano Forge. Okay, that's what I didn't hear.
and that he'll contact you again afterwards. Um, okay, so he walks out, and okay, you guys are left in the room. We've got
As
about 10
as
minutes.
he's leaving, I look back at the statue and I put my hand on the structure. I look up and look at the face of the statue, and then I do a slight bow, close my eyes, and I touch the tattoo of the three eyes.
Okay. All right, so you activate your mystical sight, and as you do so, do you want to touch the statue first, or do you want to activate your
Yes.
tattoo? Okay, as you reach out and touch the statue with your hand, right away you see there's like a distortion field, and your uh the image that you're seeing no longer matches the rest of the environment. The image itself it becomes clear that it's like a hologram, and that there's basically just a relatively um, plain kind of shaft of stone that's sticking up from the base, and that there's some kind of image being projected all around it. Um, so right away you realize that this is just some kind of program. Now, do you want to still cast your vision?
Oh, before I cast my vision, I see this is fake.
Yes.
Yes, I still want to cast it. And then I would like to look around to see if there's anything else that is not what it's supposed to be.
Okay. You cast your vision, and as you start looking around, you notice that there are several different strange shimmering kind of fields of energy that seem to overlap throughout the room. These types of energy all seem to have different kinds of signatures and appearances. And the way that they overlap, it's almost like you're in the middle of a huge cluster of bubbles that are transparent but also kind of translucent. And so they cause a bit of distortion. And where all of those kind of bubbles of